Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. Now, we hit 5,000 subscribers last week and I promised a 5,000 subscriber special and I thought it was time to reveal to you the mini that I was going to be painting for that.
Oh, let me guess. Let me guess.
I mean, you can if you really want to, but I was just going to tell you exactly.
Mortarion?
No, it's not Mortarion, although that would be very on theme for the channel.
Nagash?
I don't even own that miniature. I don't know why you would think it would be a Nagash.
Is it the Elder God Cthulhu? The one you showed on Instagram that one time.
The big boy? No. It's definitely not going to be that, although that would be pretty fantastic. Maybe for a higher number.
Then is it maybe...
Why don't you stop guessing now? I think you've had enough guesses. I think you've had 3, and that's plenty. I'm going to go ahead and reveal exactly what it is, because it's something you're going to like, and I think it's something that you guys are going to like as well. It's a relic from GW's past.
A relic, you say?
A relic, a chaos relic, in fact.
A chaos relic.
That's right. You see, we are going to be painting today Slambo!
What? Oh.
That's right, everybody. We're going to be painting the classic 1985 metal Slambo miniature, and I'm really excited, so let's go ahead and jump straight into it and take a look at what colors we'll be using today.
I live!
No! Today's paints are the base paint, Grayseer, and Balthasar's Gold. The contrast paints, Black Templar, Basilicanum Gray, Skeleton Horde, Fyreslayer Flesh, Wyldwood, and Fleshshade Red. We're also using the shade Reikland Fleshshade, and Cryptek Armorshade Gloss, as well as Necron Compound, the dry paint, and Sigmarit. And lastly, Army Painter's Glistening Blood Effects. I started by priming the miniature in Grayseer because, well, I'm going to be using contrast paint on this very classic miniature, and I wanted to make sure that it stuck well, or at least as well as I could make it. And I also wanted to work with a slightly cooler color tone for the armor tone, so it works out well, and we primed them up. Next up, I'm going to be using Black Templar on the armor. Now, we're going to be doing this for 2 reasons. One, partially because of my color scheme, I am going to be going with a classic Khorne color scheme of red, black, and brass. But I also wanted to make sure that I had the portions that were going to be brass were primed in black to help that metallic color tone actually stick to the miniature a little bit better. We don't have to layer it as much and we'll get a bolder color out of it. So we go ahead through and apply the Black Templar to all of the sections of the armor that I want it. Now, I am planning on also doing an alternating pattern. So you might notice, like, while you're only painting some of these sections, don't worry, we have that red color tone for the future sections. But for now, let's get that black down. Next up, now that the black is all finished and dried, we're going to go ahead and take Balthasar's Gold, which is going to be my brassy color tone. I know, it's not actually a brass, but, you know, GW has very weird naming conventions. So we go ahead and take the Balthasar's Gold and apply this to some of the sections that we primed in black, including his axes and some accents on the actual armor. Next up, we're going to do a small cleanup stage using some Grayseer out of the pot because I have a few sections that I really want to make sure are as clean as possible for the next colors that are going down. Those main sections are the skin, or at least it looks like skin to me because I swear I see veins on there, and that's mainly on his legs and his arms, as well as I want to make sure that the red armor portions are as clean as possible. So with our Grayseer, we prime it up. Oh! Hey, didn't see you guys there. Well, while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. All right, the cleanup phase is done. He's looking slick, and I am ready to move on to some of the more interesting colors on this color palette. The first of which being Basilicanum Gray. Now, I went ahead and chose an actual metal for the gold, but for the Basilicanum and for all of the gray portions that would otherwise be like maybe lead belcher or something like that, I decided to go with the contrast paint because one, I just really like that sort of non-metallic gray tone that you get with the Basilicanum, and I have some plans to dry brush it later to add a little bit of a metallic flavor to it. I will also say that during this stage, I absolutely loved the way that the Basilicanum actually flowed into the metal miniature. Like seeing all those recesses like fill up was awesome and very, very satisfying. Now, I did have to move that paint around because I didn't want it to actually pool quite so heavily in there, but it was a really cool experience, and my goodness, the grooves on metal miniatures are very deep. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and work on that flesh tone that I was talking about, and I found a way to use Skeleton Horde that's not just for bones. That's right, we're going to use it to make a very, very pale, like white guy, because it honestly works really well for just like a very pale Caucasian skin tone. And because this guy, he's already kind of dark, right? He's got a lot of darker color tones on him. Even that gold is a little dark. So in order to brighten him back up, add a little bit of contrast and play with how the miniature was overall going to look by breaking up some color palettes, I decided to use the Skeleton Horde as the flesh because it's going to be the palest thing that I can get, or at least that I found so far. And it works really well. Now, of course, we also use it on the bones on his helmet because, of course, it's Skeleton Horde. That's what you use it on. Skeletons. I think it's time, now that we've got some of these more recessed areas done, our darker color tones done, to add in that Flesh Terror's red color to really emphasize his armor and bring him together. I absolutely love this red tone, and a little bit more actually than I like the Blood Angels. It's a deeper, richer red, and it works with the Grayseer primer actually that I put down because it leans a little bit to that cool tone. So it worked very well for that. And overall, like, when I put this color down and I finally get his armor like in that mixed mashed hodgepodge of like sort of classic chaos look, like he's got missing pieces on him, and I really wanted to accent that by doing this pattern in the armor and having that variety in there and having it be asymmetrical. So I really focused on that with the black and red that we put down, and overall I'm really, really happy with how these base coats are looking so far. Because there is like a tiny amount of wood that you can see peeking out on the handle of his axe, I went ahead and pulled out some Wyldwood and painted it brown. For those wraps that are on that wooden handle though, we're going to use a slightly lighter color because I talked about this a little bit already. I wanted to have a contrast of sort of darker tones and lighter tones. That's why we had the skin tone being so pale. Well, to add to that and to continue to break up that color, we're going to use Fyreslayer's flesh on the wraps as well as his boots, because he's got actually these like classic leather boots on, despite the fact that all of his other armor is metal. I thought that was kind of interesting. I really like it actually. It adds a new color palette to him, or a new color addition to him, which I really enjoy. And it works really nicely. I do have to layer this a couple times though. So if you are using this color, it's very pale. You may need to layer it twice. All right, I am pretty darn happy with how he is turning out so far, but I think it's time now for us to start enhancing some of these colors, smoothing some of our colors out, and adding a couple of shades to them. So to start, we're gonna use Reikland's Fleshshade on all of the red armor pieces, his flesh, the bone, basically anything except for the black and gold. Those were going to be, well, the black's not gonna be shaded at all, but the gold, we're gonna be doing something a little bit different too. And that slightly different thing is adding a little bit of Cryptek Armorshade gloss to it. This gives it an even glossier appearance. It darkens it just enough, but still really maintains that nice metallic that it's got going, and I just really like the shade. I will say though, directly out of the pot, it comes across as kind of thick. So if you're not wanting to really drench your metallics or whatever you're putting this material over, I would definitely suggest thinning the paint a little bit with some water, or even some like contrast medium or Lamian medium or something like that. I use just water, but I did have to thin it pretty significantly because I do find that Cryptek Armorshade is a little bit of a thicker shade. Next up, I decided that one, the black was looking a little flat, as sometimes contrast Black Templar can, and so to enhance that, I was going to go ahead and use a Necron compound dry brush over all of the black bits. Ultimately, I decided for just uniformity's sake to go ahead and do this on the red bits of the armor as well. I'm not sure that in the future, if I were to do this, I would go ahead with that. The reason originally that I had done it is because, one, I wanted to pull a little bit of depth back out of the model and everything like that, because sometimes contrast paint can get a little flat looking. But the other main reason that I did it is because I was actually very worried about this paint chipping off potentially as he got handled. So I figured the Necron compound honestly could hide any paint chipping. And I don't actually think that's going to be a problem. So in the future, I don't think I would do this step. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with it. It still does exactly what I want. I definitely would do it on the black. I just don't know if I would do it on the red. That's the main key. Next up, to help add even more depth to the miniature, we're going to switch from our silver dry brush to a gold one. That's right, we're going to use some Sigmarit on all of the Balthasar's gold to basically just do some edge highlighting dry brush to add a little bit of texture and everything and brighten those weapons back up a bit before we do one final thing to them. But before we get to that, I think it's time now that we take a little bit of a break from the mini and go ahead and start working on his base. So as you can see, I have this really cool base from Secret Weapons Miniatures, which is this company that makes a bunch of resin bases of a variety of sizes. I specifically picked this one out because, well, he's a Chaos Warrior, and I feel like it's appropriate for somebody dressed in corn colors to stand on a pile, to stand, not sand, to stand on a pile of skulls. So hence the base, I think it works really well, and we're gonna go ahead and just basically throw some skeleton horde on this, let it dry, maybe layer it a second time if we feel that we didn't get enough coverage. But overall, it's a pretty simple process to prep this. This next step is not something that I normally show, but I thought it was important because this is a little bit of a unique situation. Because Slambo is metal, and I was worried about him sort of falling over because I often see a lot of older metal GW miniatures kind of like leaning slightly to like one side, I decided to secure him as best as I could to the base. The best way to do that was going to be using a product called Milliput. It is a two-part epoxy that you mix together until it's one even color, and then basically you put it on. You can use this for sculpting, but I'm using it here to basically secure Slambo to the base. And on top of that, I'm using the excess that I've added onto it to apply a couple of additional skulls from a GW skull box that I own, because I wanted to build up that pile beneath him. Like I said, he's a corn guy. I want him standing on a big old pile of skulls, so we grab a couple of spares and basically hide the Milliput underneath them. They're all pre-primed and everything, clipped out. And then once that's done, it's time to go ahead and prepare the rest of the miniature so that he is done and ready to go. And to do that, we're going to pull back out Skeleton Horde and briefly apply this to those skeletons, or the skulls rather, that we just put down on our miniature and let them dry before applying our final step. And that final step is my favorite. So I'm going to take Glistening Blood, which is an Army Painter. I know, not Citadel, it's amazing. But I have Glistening Blood from Army Painter, and I wanted to use this on the base as well as on his axes, because he is slaughtering fools, and we need to make sure that that is really evident. So I just kept applying the Glistening Blood until I was satisfied with how it was settling. I wanted to make sure that there was definitely some directly beneath him, that there was some like actually pouring out of some of the eye sockets on the skulls. I went to town with it, had a blast, and then for a bonus, because we don't actually show this like almost ever, I wanted to show off exactly how I rim my bases, because it's actually pretty simple. A lot of people do this. I'm sure you guys have done it 100 times yourselves, but you just take a little bit of black paint. I actually use a brand called Golden. It is just normal artist's acrylic that you can get at just an art supply store, and it works really well. I've had it forever. I never use it for anything else. It is literally just for rimming the bases, but it is a really deep black. It's called Carbon Black. I love it. It's the deepest black that I found that isn't like those super black paints that are out there that are ridiculous. But this one is like a pretty inexpensive one that I really enjoy. And we're gonna rim the base with it. And here he is, my 1985 classic metal Slambo miniature. And I'm incredibly pleased with how he came out. I was a little nervous to get started on him because he's actually only the second metal miniature that I've painted. Everything else has either been weirdly resin or plastic. And despite owning a number of old metal miniatures, including some of the GW ones, as well as some Reaper ones, I've not actually painted that many of them. And I was worried about like the weight when I was handling him, of like, that's gonna be awkward because I'm not used to that. I wasn't sure how the contrast paint was actually going to stick to him. I assumed with the Grayseer primer it worked fine. In fact, it did. But I wasn't 100% sure because metal miniatures are often sometimes more likely to like have the metal scuff and everything, or the paint scuff off of it. And overall, like, I didn't have that much of a problem with it. Not any more than I would normally with contrast paint when you're like handling stuff. So it came out really well, and I'm just overall incredibly pleased and very happy with my color scheme and all of my blood effects, because my base just looks like a total mess, and I love it in like a good way. Like it's bloody, it's gory, he's slaughtered all these people, he's providing them to Khorne, and it's really good. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me paint this for my 5,000 subscriber special. If you have, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a comment down below to tell me what you think of this. Let me know if you think it is worthy of the tabletop. I actually put him on this bigger base because I want to run him on the tabletop, actually. I actually want to run him as an HQ unit, potentially in my Death Guard, or at least at minimum in like a Black Legion or just an Undivided Chaos group, because honestly, like, how cool is he, despite the fact that this is like a really like 30-something-year-old mini? Like, he still looks amazing, and I'm really pleased. I think I've said that like a dozen times now. Honestly, it's been a fantastic end of the year. We had our subscriber like boom. This video I'm very happy with. I just want to thank you guys all one last time for the 7,000 subscribers. I will see you guys next week for another video. Don't know what I'm going to be painting yet, but it's going to be exciting. Don't forget to check in. Make sure to like, share the video if you've enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe for more. I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!